Since 1994, Eurostar has had a monopoly on rail travel through the Channel Tunnel between London and mainland Europe, but there are increasingly more and more indicators that this monopoly may be coming to an end. You've likely heard the recent announcement that Virgin has been awarded the rights necessary to launch a competing service, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, with a number of major developments over the last few weeks which affect several prospective operators, all of which are hoping to break Eurostar's monopoly. Welcome to Network News. For a long time, the discussions about new Channel Tunnel operators were focused on Temple Mills Depot in East London, which is the only facility in the country capable of storing and maintaining international high-speed trains. These discussions were inflamed further in March 2025 when the Office of Rail and Road concluded that there was excess capacity at the depot which could be used by another operator if needed. A flurry of applications followed, but in the end, the rights to the depot were awarded to Virgin Trains. Negotiations between Virgin and Eurostar over the precise use of the depot are still ongoing, but that's not the end of the story, as there are still several barriers Virgin will need to overcome before services can start. One of these is to acquire the necessary track access rights to run its services, slotting them in amongst other trains in the timetable. The recent announcement you've likely seen pertains to these track access rights being granted for Virgin to run trains in the UK. On the 13th of August, the Office of Rail and Road decided to pre-approve a new framework track access agreement between Virgin Trains and the owner of HS1, which they'll be able to opt into any time between now and the 4th of September. Since HS1 is privately owned, the ORR's role in this instance is not to arbitrate between potential competing applications, but instead to approve or disapprove the agreement already reached between the infrastructure owner and the operator, which in this case is London St Pancras High Speed and Virgin Trains. The agreement will allow Virgin to operate 20 return services a day along HS1 between London and Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam from the 1st of October 2030 to the 31st of December 2040. These services will be introduced in phases, with 6 daily return services running between London and Paris from October 2030, followed by 4 daily return services to Brussels in February 2031. After this, the Paris services will be ramped up to 10 a day from April, before 3 Amsterdam services in each direction will be introduced from September. It's worth noting though that the Amsterdam services are contingent rights depending on there being less than 42 departures from St Pancras in a day, owing to concerns about the station's limited processing capacity. It's also worth noting that since the Amsterdam services will call at Brussels en route, it means that the introduction of these trains will also boost services to Brussels from 4 daily paths in each direction to 7, with 3 of the trains continuing on to Amsterdam. Finally, the phased introduction of services will conclude in October 2031, when the number of trains running to and from Paris will be increased to 13 in each direction. In order to accommodate these services, London St Pancras High Speed will need to move some Eurostar services from non-standard paths into standardised slots, as well as make some minor changes to the timetable for South Eastern's high-speed services and other trains which use the line, such as freight. On our side of the channel, Virgin's new services will only call at St Pancras for now, which will have come as a massive disappointment to those living around Ashford and Ebbsfleet, though all hope is not lost for reasons which we'll discuss later in the video. Regular users of St Pancras' international terminal may be alarmed to hear that more trains are planned, as this space already struggles for capacity, but HS1's owner, London St Pancras High Speed, has a plan to increase the throughput of the terminal from 1,800 passengers per hour to nearly 5,000 passengers per hour by converting the redundant arrivals area into more space for departures and by allowing passengers to head straight onto the platforms instead of holding them in a waiting area until the train is ready to board. There's still several more hurdles Virgin will need to overcome before services can begin though. Firstly, whilst they now have the necessary track access rights in this country, they still need to secure similar rights in France, Belgium and the Netherlands, as well as obtain safety approvals from the ORR and its equivalent authorities abroad. Secondly, they will need to place an order for the trains they intend to use on the service. Virgin is planning to use 12 new Alstom Avelia Stream units, each one 200 metres long with 8 carriages and a top speed of 300 km an hour or 186 miles an hour. These are based on roughly the same design as the Pendolino units already in use with Italo, but feature modifications such as a higher top speed, longer carriages and no tilt mechanism. It's not clear exactly when Virgin is going to place a firm order for these units, but they should be ready in time for the 2030 start date, as the factory in Italy which they'll be built in doesn't have a lot on its order books at the moment, unlike the factory building Alstom's Avelia Horizon units, which has a very large order from SNCF to fulfil before it can move on to making Eurostar's new trains. Moving on, and whilst Virgin is still yet to order its new trains, another operator already has. FS Group has signed a contract with Hitachi Rail on the 7th of August for the construction, maintenance and technical support of 19 new ETR 1000 trains for use by Trenitalia France. These new trains will be used for two purposes. Firstly, they'll be used to strengthen Trenitalia's existing services from Paris to destinations such as Lyon, Marseille and Milan, and secondly, they'll be used to launch a new service between Paris and London from as soon as 2029. That means there's a very real possibility that it'll be Trenitalia, not Virgin, who will be the first operator to compete with Eurostar through the Channel Tunnel. Although the space at Temple Mills depot has been allocated to Virgin, Trenitalia's plan is to build a new depot in the Maisons Alfort region of Paris, to the south of Gare de Lyon. This depot will have capacity for 25 trains and, combined with the 19 trains they've just ordered, represents a total investment of almost €2 billion. Out of the 19 trains which have been ordered, 10 are set to be dedicated to the London to Paris route, though the entire fleet will also be certified for use on other routes out of Paris as well. Current indicators are that they're planning to operate 10 trains a day between London and Paris in each direction, which will require at least one unit to be stabled in the UK overnight, but Trenitalia believes this should be achievable. It is worth noting though that their planned depot location in Paris is on the wrong side of the city to access the line to London, so in order to get trains from the depot to Gare du Nord, they will first need to travel around the edge of Paris on a route which could be more than 100 kilometres long. It's not unworkable, but it's also far from desirable. Trenitalia hasn't secured the necessary track access rights yet, but it is in talks with London St Pancras High Speed and is confident of a 2029 start for its new services between London and Paris. It's not known yet whether it'll call at Ashford or Ebbsfleet on the way, but initial indicators are that it'll be a relatively simple affair with trains running non-stop between London and Paris. So, Trenitalia has secured a depot and trains to use, but hasn't got the track access rights, whilst Virgin has a depot and track access rights, but hasn't ordered the trains yet. However, there is a third operator which doesn't have any of these yet, but still hasn't given up on its Channel Tunnel ambitions and is also hoping to launch services by 2030. Gemini Trains is a name which will sound familiar to anyone who's seen my previous videos on the Channel Tunnel. It was one of the companies which had applied for space at Temple Mills depot, yet was rejected in favour of Virgin. Its current concern is finding an alternative site for a depot instead, and it's currently eyeing up some land near Ashford International at Chart-Leakin, which sits on the site of a former railway depot which was closed in 2014 and demolished in 2020. Once it's managed to secure a depot site, either here or somewhere else, it's also come up with a revised business plan based on the new competition from Virgin and Trenitalia, both of which are looking almost certain at this point. Since they'll be providing some very strong competition between London and places like Paris and Brussels, Gemini is instead pivoting to explore new routes which aren't currently served by trains from London. In terms of rolling stock, Gemini is still planning to use Siemens Velaro Novo trains financed by Rockrail, though it now plans on ordering 8 units instead of 10. In terms of the destinations served, this is where it starts to get creative. On the British side, they're not proposing running into St Pancras, as they fear its passenger facilities could get too congested with all the additional traffic, even in spite of the plans to remodel the station and increase its capacity. Instead, they're proposing to have passengers board their trains at both Stratford International and Ebbsfleet International, with Ashford also being considered as a possibility. Then, on the European side, the operator is hoping to serve Paris with 6 trains a day, as well as Cologne and potentially other German cities with 5 trains a day, up from their previous plans for 3 trains a day. Cologne is also a destination being explored by Eurostar for future expansions, so if they're able to secure an appropriate site for the necessary passport controls, it would mean this new route would be operated by both Eurostar and Gemini. As well as this, Gemini is also talking about reinstating services to Marne-la-Vallée for Disneyland Paris, with an intermediate stop at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Their vision is that this presents an alternative means of transport between Britain and the airport for people connecting onto long-haul flights. However, the lack of customs facilities at Charles de Gaulle Airport's high-speed station means that this may only work for people leaving the UK rather than coming back the other way. The other element of Gemini's plans are that they've entered into a partnership with the ride-sharing giant Uber, under an arrangement which would see Uber co-branding the trains and selling tickets for the route, likely including the option for booking a combined door-to-door journey with Uber's rideshare services at either end. Gemini's plans are certainly more radical than what is being proposed by any of the other operators, but I wouldn't discount them as fanciful, since they have a lot of serious backing behind them, including investors who would be interested in funding the construction of a depot for the operator. Despite not having made as much progress as some of the other prospective operators, Gemini is still confident that it can get trains running by 2030. So, those are the 3 operators lining up to challenge Eurostar's monopoly, 2 of which are looking almost certain to happen, whilst the third is also not showing any signs of giving up anytime soon. What are your thoughts on their plans to break Eurostar's monopoly? Will you use any of the new services? Let me know in the comments. It's worth noting that Eurostar does have some pretty big plans of its own, including a new fleet of double-decker trains to boost capacity on its busiest routes, which you can find out more about by watching the video on screen now. Subscribe to Network News for more updates like this, and if you want to support the channel in continuing to provide high-quality, independent analysis, consider becoming a channel supporter for as little as £1 a month, the list of whom are on screen now. Until next time though, thanks for watching.